Howdy, Immortalium here, and today I'm going to be discussing OVAs, also known as original video animations. And the reason that I wanted to have this discussion is because for those of you who are kind of newly acquainted to anime, there can be a lot of confusion over what exactly OVAs are, and even for those of us who are quite familiar with the medium of anime, we still might have some kind of wrong ideas about what an OVA exactly is. Let's start off with, of course, a bit of the history of it. So I think first off it's important to note that there's quite a difference in the view of direct-to-video movies or TV series in Japan compared to the West. In the West, we consider straight-to-video movies or TV series to be inferior or subpar quality. These are the kind of movies or TV series that we think to ourselves, they weren't good enough to be on TV or the cinema, or at the very least the distributors weren't confident enough to release them through those mediums, and so they ended up just releasing them straight to video. So that is kind of the mentality that a lot of Westerners have, but in Japan they have quite a different view on straight to video movies and TV series. Back in the 80s, when VHS started to become quite popular, a form of cinema called V-cinema, I believe that's short for video cinema, began to develop. It was an area where a lot of directors, writers, producers, etc. Felt that they were more free to create content. They weren't shackled by the studios, imposing restrictions. They weren't restricted by TV censorship or having to put in product placement and merchandising, etc. They were able to just create the stories that they wanted. And because of that, V-cinema, or straight-to-video movies in Japan, actually took on a bit of a prestige look. And that'll be particularly important when I'm discussing a particular aspect of OVAs in a little bit. So having discussed that, let's discuss the very first OVA. Now, while there is some mild debate as to what exactly the first OVA was, the general consensus is that the first OVA was released in 1983 and was called Dallos, which was a sci-fi series directed by Mamoru Oshii. Those of you who are familiar with the name Mamoru Oshii will know that he later went on to create the Ghost in the Shell movies, as well as a variety of other films as well. Now, the other thing that's quite important to bring up about these OVAs is how much they cost to purchase. So back then, videos weren't released directly to consumers. They were sold to rental stores. They would cost a lot of money, maybe like $80 to $100. And the expectation would be that the rental store would make their money back through renting the film or TV series out to consumers, so that they would make a profit in the end. But there were some fans, particularly anime fans, that were so enthusiastic about getting their own VHSs of these movies and TV series that they loved, that they actually bought these VHSs directly from the distributors, meaning that they were paying about $80 to $100. And in fact, that was one of the reasons why anime DVDs and Blu-rays even today are still so expensive. It was because of this precedent that was set up all the way back then. And because of that, OVAs became very popular in Japan. Throughout the 80s and the 90s, there were so many OVAs released that tended to feature more kind of violent, sexual, graphic content than could be released on TV at the same time. And interestingly, and this kind of goes a bit back to one of the differences between straight-to-video releases in Japan and straight-to-video releases in the West, is that these OVAs were given a bigger budget than they would have if they were a TV series, which is something that might be a little bit confusing to us, as after all we associate straight-to-video releases with poor quality and low budgets. But in Japan, because of how profitable these OVAs could be in the video market, they were given enough money that their animation quite often outshined that on television, which is truly incredible. Numerous important OVA series was established around this time, and even well-established franchises such as Lupin the Third, such as Gundam, etc. Ended up releasing a wide variety of OVAs. However, since then, OVAs have become less popular, and there's a couple of reasons for that. For one, it's important to remember that in the 80s, Japan was going through an economic boom where everyone was wealthy and they were just spending money on anything and everything. And when the crash came in the 90s, and all of this extreme spending that they were doing was cut dramatically. Additionally, as time went on, cable became more popular, and the restrictions in terms of content such as violence and sexuality on cable was much less restrictive than it was on standard TV networks. And because of that, a lot of series which would have originally only been able to have been released on OVAs suddenly was able to be released on TV. Since then, OVAs have shifted quite dramatically. And while you still see a decent amount of series released in the OVA formats, for instance, two series that I can think of off the top of my head that I loved that were released in OVA format relatively recently were Hellsing Ultimate and Gundam The Origin. But OVAs have started to kind of shift into something different, and this different form that they've taken is kind of the one that a lot of people tend to think of when they hear the word OVA, and that is additional episodes on home video releases. So what has become a bit more standard now is that you release a series through television, and when it comes to the home video releases, there might be one or two episodes that did not air on television and that you can only watch exclusively through the home video release. Now, sometimes these OVAs can be really good. For instance, there are some series that use OVAs as kind of an epilogue to round out the story, to complete character arcs, etc., etc. But OVAs, unfortunately, are also associated with kind of fillery side episodes. So for instance, infamous episodes would be like beach episodes or episodes with some kind of weird comedic gimmick. I can think of several series that have done that, and they tend not to be particularly good. But it is these types of OVAs that a lot of people tend to think of these days. And I think that's a shame, because OVAs used to be truly incredible. And while OVAs aren't dead completely, it does seem with the rise of streaming, with the lessening popularity of physical media, that it seems unlikely that OVAs will ever reach the zenith that they had back in the heyday. So that was my discussion on OVAs. Let me know your thoughts on OVAs, if you had just kind of associated OVAs with those kind of fillery side episodes that you find on some home video releases, or if you thought more of the series that were released back in the day. What are your thoughts on the differences between straight-to-video releases in Japan and straight-to-video releases in the West? Were you aware of the differences? What are some of your favorite OVAs? Whether they be complete series or whether they be some episodes that were included on some home video releases. And of course, if you have any additional information about OVAs, about straight-to-video, etc., etc., please leave them in the comments below. And of course, if you want to support the channel, I would encourage you to use my Amazon and Right Stuff affiliate links in the description below. When you purchase an anime and manga through those affiliate links, not only are you supporting me, not only are you supporting the channel, but you're also supporting the anime and manga industries. So I would highly encourage you to use those affiliate links to purchase your anime and manga. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to comment, rate, subscribe, and bye bye.